Hello, welcome back to Kenoconnorracing. It's been long overdue that I shoot another video here. I think it's been well over a year, and I just have to apologize and attribute that to being really busy, but we've got a new plan. We're going to start making a bunch more videos, and this is what we're going to start with. This is a 2013 YZ250. One problem that we see with almost every one of these with any time on them at all, and this guy rides pretty hard, he's a amateur NESC rider, motocross racer, is the transmissions. They're unique in their own way. Nothing out there really works like these do, but they are susceptible to wear, and we're going to show you a few places. That's why this is here. This is actually the second time. I didn't take it apart the first time, somebody else did, but this is the second time it's lost a gear. So we're going to get in here for the first time and see if we can diagnose it. So we're going to start by showing you how to disassemble the engine, and I'm going to put it in my very good friend Tarmo's very capable hands. So we're doing the wrenching, and I'm going to do some filming for a change. First step, pretty obvious. You should do it when it's in the bike, but like I say, we get engines in here all the time. We don't know what people did with these. First step is drain the oil out of it, and that's your drain plug. 14mm wrench. Well, sure enough, that thing was full of oil, and the time to find that out is when you pull the drain plug out, not when you pull a clutch cover off, because it tends to make a hell of a mess. But this is a magnetic drain plug, and again, we know we have transmission problems in here, but look at this. It's all metal. Alright, next step, we're going to pull the spark plug out, pretty easy. Ratchet with a 13/16 socket, and we're just going to do this at this point. We're going to be rotating this engine to get some other parts off, and we just don't want to work against compression. A lot of what we're doing, to some of you guys that have been doing this for years, is going to seem very redundant. That's not why I shoot videos. If you already know what you're doing, then please do not waste your time, or let me waste it, watching this. We definitely show you some stuff that's a little bit outside the box, but I do this and for people that really have no idea what to do, and we're trying to teach you, and I tell myself when it's all over, if my wife can watch this and be able to do this, and she's a long-legged blonde girl and I did not marry her for her brains, then I accomplished my mission. So keep watching. Next piece we're going to take off is the kicker, and Tarmo will show you how we do that. That's a 5mm Allen on the end of the kicker. So what we do is we wind the kicker all the way up, put the socket on, and this way you can just squeeze the ratchet and the kicker, and we're just going to remove that bolt. Next step is we're going to pull the reeds out, the reed boot, reed cage, and just using a 5mm T-handle here. This is the system we use to store parts in here. We can have anywhere from 2 to, I've had as many as 30 engines in here at the same time. So it's very important that we keep the stuff organized, and what we came up with is these stainless steel trays that we got out of I believe it was a Dunkin' Donuts that was closing down years ago, and it's what they are is donut racks, and it's very easy to keep your parts organized, but whatever you want to do, that's how we do it here. We just store them in the stainless steel bins. Next step, we're going to remove the shifter here, and that's just, you can use an 8mm wrench, socket, whatever you want. These are Phillips head, we call them butter bolts. We're going to take the guard off for the front sprocket and the cover for the stator and the flywheel. Just really quick, I don't want to assume you guys know anything, but you have to take that bolt out of the shifter before you remove the shifter from its location on the engine. So just make sure you do that. It's an easy mistake if you don't know what you're doing. Next thing we're going to remove is the cylinder head, and we're just going to do that with a ratchet and a 12mm socket. Going to go across from each other, not to distort the head. And there's a cylinder head, the nuts, and the washers. Just take a look at your gaskets, obvious stuff. We're not going to do the full inspection right now, but just make sure you don't have an open, broken gasket, anything like that. First step removing the cylinder is get rid of the power valve cover on the right-hand side of the engine. It's your power valve linkage. What we have here, this is a 159 gauge pin. There's a little opening in the linkage, and there's an opening in the cylinder. Put that pin in, and that's to prevent everything here from getting all stressed out, and that's an 8mm, and just crank that loose. Now we're going to remove the mechanism, the actuating arm from the mechanism, and then just as good practice, put your bolt back in there so you don't lose it. With that actuating rod disconnected, next thing we're going to do is remove the 4 cylinder nuts, and go in a cross pattern same way. With all of the nuts removed, the last step is to just pull the cylinder up. You have to be, best case scenario, it's just going to rock right out of there. Worst case scenario, you're going to have to whack it around a little bit with a rubber mallet. If you have to do that, I suggest, you know, lightly here, and keep in mind that the gudgeons, the dowels, are on this side. This side will move pretty free, just gasket sticking, but if you're stuck, it's going to be oxidation at this point here. So, you know, you can tap it around, just be careful. That's the only way you're going to get it apart. With the cylinder off, you can clearly see the crankshaft and the webs, and I get asked this question a lot and see this come up on a bunch of different forums, but see the blue? That's fine on this crankshaft. A lot of people think that's from heat, and it is, but it's heat that's done at Yamaha. That's how they assemble these cranks. So if you see something like that, don't sweat it. We're going to remove the sprocket next. Tarmo's going to show you how you deal with that little lock washer. Really sharp chisel. Just bend it over a little bit, and then you can get your nut off of there. Once you get that washer, that lock washer bent over, just get a socket on that nut, hold the sprocket, and that nut will come right off. Alright, we're going to remove the piston. This thing, I'm sure the rider's not going to want to use it, but he's probably going to want to hang on to it as a spare, just in an emergency if you're at the track and nothing else to do. You know, you got to do what you got to do. But so we'll get this piston off. We're going to remove the flywheel next, and we're simply using a 17mm impact socket. Just a square impact. Tarmo's just going to hold the connecting rod. Just hold it steady, and that'll pop right off. Don't use an impact to put it back on. But disassembling like that is fine. Just make sure you don't do something stupid like put your finger in here and try it, because that's going to break bones. Once you remove the nut and the washer, this is a special flywheel puller. Get it from Motion Pro. I don't know the number offhand, but it's the most common puller that we use in here. It works on almost every two-stroke out there. That threads in counterclockwise. Just going to lock it up and pull that flywheel right off. Tom will just put a couple wrenches on this puller, and just going to keep squeezing these wrenches together until that flywheel pops right off. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and remove the stator plate next. This engine's fairly new, so we're getting away with it. A lot of times you have to use an impact driver to get these off, but if you have to do that, just make sure you're careful on the other side of the case. Next piece we're going to remove is a neutral switch. These things are about 50 bucks, so better off just, you know, get rid of it now. Okay, we got the screws and the neutral switch out, but the guy that put this together, look at that blue Loctite, boy, that wasn't fun. And then these two pieces, you got to make sure you pull those out of that cam assembly inside of there. So it's in that hole. Don't lose those. A little spring and a little denting. Caps for cans. Save those. Really good for holding small parts. Okay, here's where we're going to start getting a little controversial. There's three covers here. There's a cover for the water pump. Point that out. And there's a center cover for your clutch. See if you got to change plates at a race. And then you have the whole clutch cover itself. I like to remove this in one piece. All right. You can go ahead and pull this. You can pull this. But what I'm going to try to do is take this whole cover off, leaving these intact, and I think that's going to minimize putting any stress on these parts, and I'll take the little covers off when we're done. So start from the inside, go cross-directional, and work your way out in a big X. Okay, there's all of the covers off, and we're just going to set this aside again using a little cap from a spray paint can. Works really well for keeping your small parts together. And the next thing we're going to do is pull this clutch apart. Go ahead and loosen these bolts up. Alright, so we're getting the bolts, the springs. Just keep that stuff in a pile. Once you get the springs out, you pull the pressure plate off. Get your plates out of there. And we're going to loosen the nut, but as I'm looking at this, and this is as new to you guys, it's new to me too. I haven't seen inside of this yet, but is that lock? Is that washer not locked?
It's got a little bit.
Yeah, just a little. Okay. Okay, we're going to get the nut baskets. Get that little tab bent back over. Pop that nut off of there and pull the clutch push rod out. Alright, this one happens to be counterclockwise. Most of them are, but I'm not going to say 100%. I don't know, but we're just going to impact this right off. And what you do, just give it a couple burps. Don't ever impact these back on, but you can, it's certainly acceptable to impact it off. So nut pops off. A lot of guys put Loctite on this. I put Loctite on it, so sometimes you gotta hit it with the gun, and that's fine. Just use your head. After that nut comes off, you've got your lock washer. We always replace those. Don't ever reuse it. Get your clutch hub. There's a washer in here. And your primary basket. The bearing inside of here. The back side of the basket. Another washer. That's your bearing. With the clutch baskets off, the next thing is to pull that shifter out. And there's a little piece that's on the actuating mechanism, and also a washer behind it. Make sure you get these pieces. And that little bushing right there, don't lose that thing, you're going to need that. Next piece, pretty easy, kickstart mechanism. Just grab that spring, that unwind, you just pop that right out of there. Check for washers on anything that you pull out, and there's one for sure. Anytime you have steel against the case, always check for a washer. Not every manufacturer puts them there, but a lot of them do. Make sure you check that. Here's a kick idle gear. We're going to take that out with a pair of snap ring pliers, and I know that a lot of you guys are too cheap to buy the right tools you need, so you're going to use screwdrivers, and that's okay because we're going to replace that clip anyway. Check for washers. Make sure you're not missing any parts. I'm going to pull this retaining plate off next. It's just a 10 millimeter. In this thing, we know it's been taken apart, so we're kind of looking for Loctite here and there. I prefer to put a little on it, but it doesn't look like we're getting any resistance. I put a little drop of blue on that. Okay, so we have this this mechanism, this actuating mechanism for the shifting. I've got all of that off, and there's a lot of little pieces in there. I'm going to zoom in on that. Flip that back up, Tarmo. A lot of little pieces. You got those little dogs, and you got springs in there, and you just want to make sure that you're keeping all of this stuff together. You're not going to lose it. It doesn't matter if it falls apart. We're going to be taking it apart and looking at everything anyway, but just keep a watchful eye on these little parts, and they are small. A good way to keep it together, again, this is a paint can. Just throw it in there, everything stays together, you're not going to lose anything, and here's a plate, a couple screws, done deal. This next piece we're going to remove is called, Yamaha calls it a segment. That makes very little sense to me. There's a 12 millimeter bolt in there. A lot of times there's Loctite on this, and one thing I will tell you, don't ever use an impact on that. That's going to bounce the transmission around and make more problems. But once you get that bolt out, we're going to remove the segment or the shift star or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to take that little locking mechanism, spring loaded, bend it up, pull that out, and then very slowly drop that down. Now we can remove the locking mechanism, the spring. Next step is we're going to remove that seal retainer, which also acts as a place for that spring to hook onto. Once you have this mechanism all out and stashed, you're not going to lose it. You want to look at this piece right here. This is on the shift cam, and sometimes these will pop right out. I like to at least just see if they're laying in there loose. I mean, you're going to lose them, so just check it, and if it's in there nice and tight, don't worry about it, leave it. Next thing we're going to do is remove the bolt that holds the primary gear on. The other gear drives the water pump and the power valve. And we're just going to do that with an impact. Same thing, hold the rod, just give it a little boop, boop. It's not under a lot of torque, and that's totally acceptable. Once you get the bolt out, just go ahead and start removing the gears. There's a little spacer plate under there. Make sure you get that out. 10 millimeter, we're going to remove the seal retainer. Okay, if you've never done this before, you have reached the step of the dreaded case splitting. Good luck. This is not as hard as anybody will tell you it is. This is one of the harder engines to do, though, I will tell you that. The first step is to make sure you get every one of these bolts out. Even that doesn't hold it together, but take it out just so you're not going to break anything. This one, there's a few in here. Make sure you have every single bolt out. Got all of the bolts out, we're positive. Next thing we're going to do is get these cases split, and Tarmo's going to show you how to do that. Go ahead, Tarmo. Tarmo! What are you doing? That's not how I taught you. Yeah, we'll try something a little bit more professional. That's what you're going to need to do this job. That's another Motion Pro tool, I believe, but it's a versatile case splitter. It comes with all kinds of bolts. washers, and we'll show you how we get this hooked up. Got our puller installed, and just a couple points I want to let you know about. These bolts, when you screw these into the case, put them in as far as they'll go. Don't put them in like 3 threads. You're just going to tear it right out. And then try to keep everything as level as you can, and close, as close down to the surface as you possibly can. Next thing we're going to do is show you how we're going to split these. As we split these cases, the only thing I'm really worried about is that they come up even. Okay, both sides, front and back. We have 3 things we have to watch besides the split in the cases. This is our puller. This is going to apply pressure and start to split this case in this direction. The back may or may not come up by itself. I bet it's not gonna. So those 2 tabs, you just get yourself a little device. You know, and you have to use your head about this. Yeah, if you're, you know, a big gorilla the size of Tarmo and don't know how to control your own strength, you'll break these things. You got to be careful. The other thing is the seal wear ring in here is kind of stuck on here, and I don't want to mess with it too much. We can get it off, but basically the first step is to go ahead and start tightening the clamp at the top. Show them that, Tarmo. You get a 17mm wrench. I'd like to put this whole thing in one shot, but I can't because Tarmo's the size of a small elephant. But he's going to start putting some pressure on this. I'm going to roll because I want you to hear this thing pop. I want you to hear what it sounds like. There it is. Everybody heard that, right? That means things are starting to move. This is the time to take a little inspection. You can see that case, how it's just barely opening in the front. This is really good. If you guys have never done this, I'm telling you, anybody can do this. You just got to know what to look for. Here's Tarmo. He's going ahead and pry it in the back, and then back to the front. Start putting a little pressure. Keep going like that. Have patience. You won't break anything. I guarantee it. You'll be fine. Okay, this was a third area. See what's going on here? That seal wear ring is staying with seal, but the transmission shaft is sliding very freely through that, and that's one thing we're watching for here. And again, he's just going to continuously put more pressure on these cases, insisting they come up even. Just got to use your head, that's all. You don't want to force anything. As soon as you find yourself forcing something, you're going to break it. All the pressure's been relieved off the cases. See, everything came apart nice and even. So real calm. Don't worry about things falling. It may happen. Don't worry about it. We're going to take that top case off, and as soon as that pops off, you want to put it to the bench and flip it so the inside is up facing at you. Here's a shot of our cases, and you'll notice when I said take the top case off and put it so the inside is facing up. There's a couple reasons for that. You want to make sure, number one, that there's no washers that are being stuck to bearings. That's how parts get lost. And you want to see what is actually going on in here without disturbing it a whole lot. We looked at a microfiche drawing, and I'll show you this. Tarmo will lay this out. And what we did find, I'm going to zoom in on this, is this particular transmission. See that little clip? I got an arrow pointing to it. All right, move that, Tarmo. There it is. Little snap ring. And it's welded right to this bearing. And I have a suspicion what happened, and I'll go over that in a second. Here's what I think happened. Here's what I know happened, actually. This is the clip that we took off the bearing. Everybody knows that clip doesn't belong on that bearing. According to the microfiche, the manual, and everything else, this little snap ring goes over that shaft to retain this gear. When we look at this a little bit closer, oops, sorry, I did not want to do that, but let's bring it back in. I'm going to have to look at this shaft and inspect it, but I want to make sure, number one, that the shaft wasn't damaged by that clip popping off, because if there's a big radius on the inner part of it, yeah, the clip's going to fly off. I guarantee with the person that took this apart, these are new gears too, with the best intentions in mind, God bless him, did two things that were very wrong. Number one, he didn't replace this clip. You could not pay me $1 million to reuse this clip. I wouldn't do it, because this is what happens. The other thing is there's directions that this clip should be put on. And I can see, and it was on this way. This is the rounded side. The rounded side on the inner part of this clip, you can see it. See how it's all shiny? That's a chamfer to pop off of here. These are motocross bikes. You guys are running the crap out of these things. So anything that you do wrong, you know, it's susceptible to things happen. It's unfortunate. This guy did dodge a bullet. Where we originally quoted him, I said, you probably got all kinds of bad transmission gears. I said it may cost you $800 in parts and then labor. But, you know, fortunately, and I'm glad we filmed it too, because he's going to watch it. He dodged a bullet. We saved him a bunch of money. But we're going to carry on with this rebuild like it's a full rebuild. And next part of this video is going to be inspection. But I'll show you how to get the rest of the transmission and the forks out and everything else, and we'll go on from there. Before we pull this transmission out, just for ha-has, I had Tarmo put this clip back on. See that? That's very bad. That clip, you shouldn't be able to move it at all. Even with a tool, it should be tough. But we just put it on to keep the gears together. So next thing, we're going to pull the tranny out. This transmission is very unique in the fact that the dogs, the forks rather, and the shafts are all one piece. Just about any other engine, all we would do is pull these shafts out and then move the forks over, pull the shift cam out, we'd be done. This one, unfortunately, you have to do a little finagling, and if you think it's rough taking it apart, will you try to put it back together again? These YZ engines are like Chinese finger puzzles, but little patience, they do come apart. Just gonna keep pushing the gears up. Yeah. Don't worry about leaving stuff in the cases. Just keep everything in the right order, and we're going to check everything when we go to put it back together anyway. But last step before we start inspecting is to get this crankshaft pushed out. We've just got a 2-point puller on here, shim to protect the crankshaft, and you can do this. I don't do it in my shop like that. This is meant to show you guys how to do it when you're out in your garage. You probably don't have a lot of the equipment that we do, but this is perfectly acceptable. Push the crankshaft out. We're going to do it in a press, but thanks for watching. kenoconnorracing.com. We'll see you on the inspection and assembly side of this video.